Welcome to another exciting episode of Kevjet, the podcast. I'm excited to introduce to you 4 exceptional members from the world's first gay rugby team, the renowned King's Cross Steelers.
I thought, gay rugby, that looks like fun. I've wanted to play rugby for years. And then I was in London the following year, went to a trial day. Whether I should admit this or not, I had so much fun on that day, it sort of pushed me to move to London.
Get ready to be inspired by these incredible athletes as they share their experiences, insights, and the camaraderie that makes the King's Cross Steelers a force to be reckoned with.
It is a family, and we're all united. And I think the thing that a lot of us have got in common, not everyone, but some people have felt comfortable playing growing up, but a lot of us didn't feel comfortable to play such a lads sport when we were, I suppose, younger queer kids navigating sport and sexuality and stuff like that.
We'll dive into the team's pioneering spirit, their unwavering commitment to inclusivity, and the positive change they've brought to the sport.
I played at school as I got older, and I slowly sort of squeezed out of sport a bit more, that it wasn't a particularly inclusive space. So it was really great to be able to come back to a team sport.
It's become such a massive part of my life that, I've found people that I would genuinely call family now.
From breaking down barriers to fostering a sense of belonging, this episode promises to be a testament to the transformative power of sport.
Sexuality or perceived sexuality is why I stopped playing sport at school, even if I didn't know it at the time.
I've learned so much about the community and started to learn a lot more probably about myself. It is becoming invaluable what this rugby club does for people. I can see the wider benefit in terms of support structures and where people dart to the rugby club when they first come to London because they need that safe space to then learn about what's around and who's around. I think it's brilliant, to be honest.
There's a place for everyone within the Steelers, whether that is program, pathway, coaching, touch, anyone who wants to be a part of it. We do even allow the straight people in.
It is probably one of the most common questions that comes our way, to be fair.
We're athletes before we're gay guys, but ultimately we're all together because we are in the LGBTQIA plus spectrum. And as much as being gay doesn't define us, it is kind of what unites us.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with 4 members of the King's Cross Steelers: Chris, Matt W., Al, and Matt R. Welcome to Kevjet, the podcast, members from the Steelers.
Hey.
Hey, you all right?
I've been looking forward to having this conversation. I've been having a conversation with someone in the background, and I've been briefed on some questions, and I'm going to hit you with them. We'll just go with the flow and have a great conversation. So who wants to tell me who's the longest member of the rugby club, and how did you discover the club?
So this is my 10th season, 10th year. So I was much younger, quicker, and skinnier when I joined. How did I find the club? I think I lived in Bristol, and Bristol was holding either Bingham or Union. I want to say it was Union. I thought, gay rugby, that looks like fun. I've wanted to play rugby for years. And then I was in London the following year, went to a trial day. Probably, whether I should admit this or not, I had so much fun on that day, it sort of pushed me to move to London in a way. So that's how I found it. And I remember trying to cancel because I was so nervous about going. And one of the coaches rang me, and then I said, okay, I'll come. Oh, wait, no, I've not got boots. And he replied no, I've got boots you can wear. Get your ass down here.
No pressure.
It was so long. No, it was so long ago. I remember we went to, what was the pub in Camden that closed down? Like the Black Cap? That's where we went after.
And am I right in saying the club began in 1995?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And it was the world's first gay rugby club.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And were any of you involved in the documentary?
I mean, there's shots of us, but I wasn't definitely involved. Both
Yeah, there's a video.
in the club, and both times getting in drag.
Oh yeah, I'm in drag in it, and I'm very pissed walking down a corridor just before like a commercial break, or what would have been a commercial break. like walking down the canals in Amsterdam.
Nice. That's your claim to fame, is it?
One of.
It's a regular night out, isn't it, Chris?
No, it's the streets of Soho usually.
How often do you guys train?
Twice a week.
Do you want the expected answer or the real answer?
Let's hear both.
Well, I would like them to be there twice a week at least, but it's very rare that anybody manages twice without some work emergency stopping them from arriving, or having some social they forgot about.
How does your 9 to 5s affect your, not just training, but your ability to be there for your teammates?
Oh, you go, because you actually run a business.
I think actually, because I'm self-employed, I can to an extent make it work around my work, except for when I can't. And it's an important part of my day. I'll try and make everything to sort of get there, like balance out my day from a sort of health perspective, getting time out of the office, all that sort of stuff. So try and make it work. But twice a week plus match days on Saturdays is quite a lot. So it's nice to hear Matt's understanding just then when he was talking about it. Do
you guys find that's a stress, where you have your sort of like your 9 to 5 and then you're dedicated obviously to the rugby, but you're also have your commitment with your 9 to 5s?
Just means I turn up to training brain dead, to be honest.
That's what I mean. So it's like, is it a good mental escape? Like, is it good for your mental health? How does playing rugby work for your mental health?
I think like at the end of the workday, the last thing you want to do in some cases is travel across London to stand in the cold. But for me, it's like going to the gym. Once you're there, you're going to work and you're going to enjoy it and you're going to leave feeling a lot better. But it's just like sitting on the Jubilee line in rush hour.
Yeah,
not so fun.
No.
Is mental health something that you guys openly talk about with each other?
Within our groups, I'd say yes. Everyone's obviously got their own like close friendship groups or like parents made within the club. And it does lend itself to being a bit more of a supportive environment for that, because you're spending 3 days a week probably with these people. And if there's a reason you can't come down, you are more likely then to lean on, your close friends that you've made at rugby. And you do have those open and honest conversations quite a lot, because you don't want to let your teammates down, but you also need to look after yourself at the same time.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I'd say it's a really important factor for me. Obviously, my role as director of rugby. I'm really pleased that I've had a number of occasions this season where players have opened up to me about where they're at. One in which was during a game, and we had to make a change in the match, which none of these guys will be aware of, but that's why I'm there. And another one was actually due to play a match, made a horrendous excuse as to why they couldn't play the match, and then finally came to me separately to open up about what had really happened. And we had the conversation about how that has always been more important. So hopefully the players understand that as much as we try to be as professional as we can be, like their well-being is still first. There's never any judgment on somebody that needs a break or needs further support. So I'm really pleased that a couple of players have felt comfortable to do that, and hopefully that just continues through the club.
Do you guys feel like it's sort of a family atmosphere amongst each other?
100%. Like me and Northern Matt have spent Christmas together 2 years running. It is a family, and we're all united. And I think the thing that a lot of us have got in common, not everyone, but some people have felt comfortable playing growing up, but a lot of us didn't feel comfortable to play such a lads sport when we were, I suppose, younger queer kids, like navigating like sport and sexuality and stuff like that.
I guess it's a safe place for open conversations, no matter if it's somebody who's new within the club or someone who's been there for a long time. It's just a safe place for anyone to express themselves.
I think there's a degree of understanding, and I think there's a lot of shared experience within the club. I think, as Chris was just saying, whether people were sort of playing at school or not playing at school, like I played at school, but felt that as I got older, like slowly sort of squeezed out of sport a bit more, that it wasn't a particularly inclusive space. So it was really great to be able to come back to a team sport towards the end of my 20s, just for the record, everyone. I think that's really valuable.
Maybe let's go around the room and we'll start with Matt Wright. And just tell me how you found the club. Give me the history about you in the club, and tell me your favorite thing about it.
God. I found out about the club because I was drunk on a date once with some guy, and we were both chatting about it. And then we both signed up for one of the induction days. And I turned up, he never did. I mean, I never spoke to him again really after the date, so I'm not really surprised why he didn't turn up. And then just kind of, yes, stuck around, made some amazing friends, one of whom I lived with, within a year of joining the club. It's become such a massive part of my life that, I've found people that I would genuinely call family now within the space. I've gone through the club, like trying to help out and do as much as I can. Now sort of sit on that board in the social situation and try and, give back to something that has given me so much support and so much, not necessarily like not just socially, both mentally and physically as well. Because I'm a lazy shite. I won't do anything unless people are nagging us to go out and do some exercise. So without them there, I'd probably just be a fat lump that didn't really do much other than drink and chain smoke.
I see people nodding their heads.
Very supportive way, yeah.
How long have you been with the club?
Good question. This is my 7th year, I want to say. So joined back in 2017, 16, 17, something like that. And then joined in through the Pathway program and sort of with about 50, 60 other members who either hadn't played for years, like I hadn't played in about a decade, and then, picked it back up along with all these other lads that had joined the club at the same time.
Let's go to Matt R.
The club initially approached me, so my day job is with England Rugby, sort of coaching coaches. And so the club came to me initially to ask if I'd be interested in joining. But at the time, I just signed on with another club. But after a year down the line, that club perhaps didn't take rugby as seriously as I'd hoped. And I'd also been keeping track on the Steelers since then as well. And interestingly, when the club first approached me, they had no idea about my sexuality. And it was still relatively new for me as well. So having watched, a lot of the social media and stuff, I guess I was kind of more interested in what I could get from the club from a wider perspective, not just rugby. So after that year had passed, I dropped them a line and said, look, I'm going to be available for next season. Is it something you're still interested in? And I went down to meet a few times and then we decided to get involved and I took over as director of rugby a couple of years ago. It's been crazy, I think is the word I'm going to use, crazy ever since.
Let's move on to Al.
So I joined the club about 4 years ago. Been like really sporty at school, played a lot of rugby, and like I said, sort of found myself playing less and less. And then in my 20s, just kind of drank everything. About 4 years ago, I stopped drinking everything, but and sort of got sober. Meant that this is also around the time of the first lockdown, and sort of socially had not very much going on, like no one did. But I decided to join the club. Something I thought about before, just to have sort of the option to really have a social piece outside of work and an opportunity to play sort of team sport again. And I think for me, like, especially learning to sort of socialize without about 10 pints of cider has been quite an interesting one. And the club's been like great for that. So yeah, stuck around.
That's great. How did lockdown affect the club?
I think we tried our hardest, everybody involved. We managed to do some cool stuff virtually. So I think we did like a virtual viewing party of Steelers, the movie that was happening, and we were just catching up with each other. I think it was really clear that the club was a big part of a lot of people's lives. It was the balancing act of keeping everyone involved, but not sitting on Zoom the whole time, like the irony now that we're sat on Zoom. But yeah, it was just a lot of catching up with each other. I think I've always been someone that loves a phone call, but we were a lot better at, ringing each other on a Sunday and catching up and that kind of stuff. And we were like the board at the time, we were all very vocal in saying, if you need anything, reach out.
Everyone talks about how important it is, not just for their physical health, but their mental health. And then all of a sudden you're just thrown into lockdown and you're not allowed to see each other in person. Even for my line of work was really important. And I always say I had some of the best conversations I ever had in my whole life with some of my friends over Zoom during lockdown?
Quite a lot of us were still in Steelers frat houses at the time as well. I know I was.
Oh, no, just a little, those social bubbles you could have with a couple of households. There was quite a lot of that going on.
Well, it was kind of important. And now that we look back at it, and I mean, there's lots of opinions, it was important to have your bubbles.
Coming out of it, we did a really cool inter-club touch tournament. So it was a complete mix of loads of teams because touch rugby was all we could do. And it coincided with the club's 25th birthday, I want to say. And we did like all these fitness challenges, like run 25K for 25 years. And that was great, getting everyone back. And then, yeah, sitting in the Steelers car park in tables of 6, having a few beers afterwards was also super fun.
Yeah. What was it like being an athlete, as a young athlete, in the closet? Was it scary? Did you guys have to come out as an athlete? Like, were you already playing sports? Were you open about it? How did that happen? Tell me your stories.
For me with this one, I think that it's difficult because for me, when I was younger, you don't articulate the difference to sexuality. It's kind of articulated for you by others. So all you're aware of is a difference. Like I said, I think within a team setting, that can be quite exclusive. So, I mean, I didn't come out probably until I was in my mid-20s. And so definitely wouldn't have been a consideration at school. So I'm probably not positioned to answer from that perspective. But I think sexuality or perceived sexuality is why I stopped playing sport at school, even if I didn't know it at the time.
I think that's a common theme, and that's why I'm asking the question. And I hope that's starting to turn around. Was it the same experience for all of you?
No. I mean, I came out very young. I was like 12, 13. And I was I'd been playing rugby and like other sports at school throughout. And I kept going. Like, it was generally fine. There wasn't that many negative reactions, or if there were, I just didn't really pay much attention. I was kind of in my own world most of the time. I still am, just kind of plodding along, getting on with what I like doing. I didn't really hang out with many of the rugby boys outside of rugby. I had my own friendship circle, and then like interests just sort of split. But I didn't never really put it down to my sexuality. There was probably comments made, but I was just kind of like, yeah, man, what, and get on with it. So like, it didn't massively affect us, I don't think, but might have.
Chris?
I came out when I was probably about 13, 14, and I lived in fear for probably year 7 to year 10. I think when I was in year 9, someone came up to me and said, "Are you gay?" And I said yes, and he just like knocked me out. So I had a really horrible time at school. I found myself, so I actually did a really high level of dance, cow surprise, and I did quite a lot of athletics, and like it was a lot of individual stuff I felt a lot more comfortable with, and dance is like, I wasn't the only gay guy in the dance company. I was the only gay guy at school. And then moving to uni, I sort of got back into sport at uni. I took 3 years out before I went to uni. And then at uni, I got super involved. I did gymnastics, I did cheer. I did a lot of gymnastics growing up as well, but eventually ran for sports president and got that at my uni as well. So I was so super involved in sport. So it got a lot better as I was older. But as you asked that question, I can't decide if I consciously or unconsciously pushed myself into a lot of individual sports versus team sports.
I think I did that with I completely relate to what Chris is saying about, well, individual sports for sure.
Matt?
I guess it's kind of been almost polar opposite for me, really. I was involved in rugby since like 11. At the time, I was too fat to play football, so I had no other option. And then somebody said I'd come to rugby training, and then I sort of fell in love with the game from there. So the majority of all through my teens and into my 20s, I was involved in some form of rugby, and we've actually went refereeing, lucky enough to go to tournaments around the world and stuff. And I guess whilst I was in my teens, I knew there was interest there, but I think I'd buried it enough to justify to myself that although I knew there was an interest, I wasn't ever bothered about pursuing it. So it didn't necessarily impact me during sport because I wasn't that aware, although I had an inkling, if that makes any sense at all. I've never really been that bothered. And lucky for me, obviously, by the time I did come out in my club, nobody really cared. because they knew me so well, probably knew me better than myself, that it didn't really make any difference there. It didn't make any difference to England either. They didn't really care either. Apart from asking me if I wanted to suddenly join the Pride parade or something, and I was, no, that's not where I'm going with this. But yeah, it didn't make any difference there either. So I've been, incredibly lucky that in the time that I did start to realise and I did do anything about it, that nobody cared, because I was me for sport and rugby and what I do, and what I did outside of that didn't really matter. So I've been probably the most fortunate. I've not really had any negative reaction. So it puts me in a difficult position, because I almost struggle a bit with empathy, because I think, well, I'm just me and this is what happens. And so hearing, Chrissy's story particularly, I just couldn't imagine being in that position. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to learn.
Do you guys feel that you have to sort of, you have a responsibility for the community?
It's the thing I love about the club is that I've been there, well, this is my second year now, and I've learned so much about the community and started to learn a lot more probably about myself, that it is becoming invaluable, really, because living where I live is tiny, middle of nowhere. Like, somebody knew a gay once, that's about it. And so to suddenly learn so much about the community, and also, I guess, what this rugby club does for people. I mean, the guys have alluded to it already about lockdown and stuff, but where I can see the wider benefit in terms of support structures, and where people dart to the rugby club when they first come to London because they need that safe space to then learn about what's around and who's around. Like, yeah, I think it's brilliant, to be honest.
Do you guys feel frustrated with professional athletes who are hiding who they are?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Join us each week on the Well Beyond Medicine podcast as we explore the 80% of child health impacts that occur outside the doctor's office. Listen and subscribe at nemorswellbeyond.org, where you'll hear pediatric experts, researchers, and policymakers from around the world discussing ways they are revolutionizing children's health. I'm your host, Carol Vassar. Let's go.
Let's go. Well beyond medicine.
I personally don't feel frustrated. I'm going to show my age a little bit here, that I was just old enough to remember what happened to Justin Fashanu. And the problem lies more with the dirt sheets than it does with individuals not wanting to come out. So, I mean, that must have been 92, 93, but it is, like, for a lot of people, one of the most recent, I suppose, tragedies of a male active team sport player coming out as gay. Also, someone, no matter whether you're 60, 40, 30, 12, you come out when you're ready. I personally don't get frustrated.
My view is the same.
All around the board?
Well, I think we're quite unique in rugby, because there are a few examples of gay players and match officials and things that people are not that bothered. So we're uniquely placed in this sport, I guess, that there's acceptance in league and union. Obviously, football is a clear one, and I still feel that the wider fan base of football is not there. They couldn't. I don't think they could accept it yet. Hearing some young lads in the pub reacting to football in the same way that parents and relatives would have done 30, 40 years ago, it's definitely not in a place yet, I think, where people feel anywhere near comfortable for it. So there's still work to be done, clearly, but I'm pleased that rugby at least is showing a way where it can be positive, perhaps.
Sorry, Matt, just to jump in, though, there is still, when Harlequins posted, this is our fourth Pride game, some of the comments from some of the supporters on that chat, this has got no place in my sport. There's a lot of hardcore rugby fans, and I completely agree with you. I went to a football match 5 years ago and couldn't go again. I couldn't deal with the language, the homophobia, the racism. But it's good. It's not perfect.
Can I just go back there, though? I totally agree with you, and some of the comments were absolutely ludicrous. And I read them just laughing a lot of the times. I thought, these people clearly really think this. But one of the real positives there was, I don't know if you saw Joe Marler actually took time. So he's obviously England professional player, plays for Harlequins. He took the time to reply to, I mean, he put bell end emojis to most of them, but he took the time to like call them out and go back to them. And that, I really appreciated that, because you need somebody that sort of standing to be an ally in that case. And I think to try and make these people look as silly as they are.
I think it also just demonstrates why it's necessary to have initiatives like the Pride Weekend sort of within sport, and obviously sort of Pride on a wider level, and to sort of keep those conversations moving forward.
You mentioned your weight earlier, and I just wonder how body confidence plays into this, because in the gay community, we've made several jokes about it already. I mean, that's just something that it's the way it is, and whether it's right or wrong is to be talked about. But how does that play in rugby? Where does that come in?
The shirts are a lot tighter now than they used to be.
Is it something that you guys struggled with or still struggle with? How does that work? Because everybody's different, but you guys are a family. And so is it something you talk about? Is it something that people struggle with?
I mean, for me personally, I've always struggled with, polar opposite of what a lot of people struggle with. Like, I came to this club like 55 kilos, like rake thin, like not very healthy looking. And like personally, it's helped me have a better body image, like in my own head, of being like, actually, if you do gain a bit of weight, if you gain a bit more muscle, you will be more physically fit, and you'll be able to do your job on the pitch better than if you're not. And the great thing about rugby, there is a spot on the pitch for every single body type that there is. So whether you're skinny as a rake, whether you're 120 kilos, and everything in between, like if we had a prop that was rake thin, we'd just be like, eat more, or like we'd just be like, no, that's not who you are, we'll move you to a different position to help adapt as best as you can. And obviously we see each other all the time getting shaved and whatnot, so that just kind of normalizes looking at a wide spectrum of different body types, different body shapes. I mean, unless you've got tiny calves, like there's nothing we can really do about that. Sorry, that was just a dig at Chris.
I think it's such a physical game as well. It does make you appreciate what the body is capable of, especially over an 80-minute match, which also helps, like to Matt's point earlier, I think with any sort of hang-ups, or it can help with any sort of body hang-ups.
Mm-hmm. How are you guys received from the gay community as athletes?
I think the Steelers are quite known in the London gay community, but I think that's both a blessing and a curse at times. The plus is everyone knows at least one Steeler. The negative is that everyone knows at least one Steeler. And the interaction with that personal people does at times form someone's opinion of you. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm perfect, because I'm not. And I've probably been the bad Steeler once or twice. But yeah, I think it's even similar in the gay rugby world, because we are like a lot of people. I think there is a perception that we're quite insular. I don't know, insular. Thank you, Matt. Word of the day. So like, and actually we've all got mates in other teams, and we always try and do our best. But yeah, I think I wouldn't say we're looked at as athletes, we're looked at as Steelers, and what that Steelers things mean, I think, is interpreted by the person looking in the eye of the beholder or whatever.
I think that goes back to, if you guys have a responsibility that you're holding up to being respectful, and as a character, like characteristics, like, do you feel like you have to act a certain way, or do you feel like you can just be yourself when you're off the pitch?
Yeah, I don't think we feel we have to act a certain way. I mean, it's not, the gay community especially, don't really see it as, the founding respect of like the core values of rugby. A lot of the time it does get fetishized, like, oh, how's it in the showers? What's it like? And take a photo of you all muddy in your kit, and so on and so forth, some more expletives on top of that. That does get a bit annoying and a bit frustrating, because you do get the same conversation over and over and over again, especially on the dating apps. It's just like frustrating after a while. And then you're just like, actually, I'm not even going to mention it half the time.
People like they say, "Oh, I'd love to be in that scrum," and like me and Al can vouch the positions we play. Once you've done 4 of those on a Saturday and you're only 12 minutes into an 80-minute game, you very much do not want to be there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Have you guys had a defining moment in the club? Something that's just defined who you are as an athlete?
When we had Bingham a couple of years ago, that was a big one for me. I think I'd done Pathway and did my first season with the club. And so this is like a long time after like playing at school and coming back. I think so we went to Canada for Bingham, which is every 2 years. And it was the first time I'd really sort of spent time with the team in like any sort of meaningful capacity outside of a match. I think that, like I said, I'd stopped drinking. I found it really hard to have a conversation with people. I've got better, for the record, before anyone makes any comments. And actually just being able to have a chat with people and feeling like I could engage with them on my own terms and feeling like accepted as part of the group was a really big deal for me. I think it's funny when you can have those experiences. Like I'd have been like 31 at the time, and just the impact I can have on yourself as an adult is pretty crazy. So yeah, that
was life-changing for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I mean it had a really big impact. Like socially, it gave me a lot of confidence that I've been able to take into other areas of my life. I try and make less snarky comments as time goes on. For the record, it did have a really big impact for sure.
Anybody else? Any big moments for you?
I think for me, it was just the scale of the club.
Well, no, Matt's right. Like I joined 10 years ago and we couldn't field a second team. I played my first season with 12, 13, 14 players on the second team. And after injuries on Saturday, we were on about the same numbers. But for us to have like, Matt, you're going to know the numbers better than I am. But for us to now have 300 members?
Yeah. So I think the most recent tournament we went to in Birmingham for Union, we took, I think it was 150 players across 5 and a bit teams. I think just the scale of that, and realizing just how many people are involved, to make that work. I think the moment for me was probably actually after that tournament had finished. So in the days following that, there were so many sort of post-tournament blues on the fact that I'd got used to going down for breakfast and seeing a whole load of people who were, genuinely happy to be there with each other and excited for the day ahead, even though, it was a real big physical effort on all fronts. And then I guess looking at the scale of, what we'd taken there compared to even other teams, just realizing how big the club is, but yet, how everybody in that club was there for each other, and the atmosphere across the couple of days was immense. And I'd been on countless rugby tours with work and all the rest of it, but I'd never experienced anything post tournament like that first one with the Steelers. And I think it's just how everybody connected and worked together and supported each other, and even just as I said, getting used to seeing people and socializing, and it was amazing, really.
Matt, right?
Yeah, I know, but that was a very serious answer. I wasn't going to have one. I was just going to say fracture my collarbone last week. But it does make you realize just how it is a very physical sport, and you are actually fragile. Every break, everything like that, and seeing how all your teammates come around you. I've had check-ins from people that I've probably had about 4 conversations with the entire time I've been in the club. People constantly messaging you, and it does make you realize that you are a part of something that is quite big, and it is a community.
Talking about being inclusive, so let's talk about trans. Let's bring that into the factor here. So how inclusive is the team?
As inclusive as we can be under the RFU guidelines.
Smart answer. I was talking about this today, like with friends at lunch, and I was saying, this is the interview I'm doing tonight. And they're like, okay, so inclusive. So are there straight guys playing? Are there like trans people playing? Are like, they were asking all those questions, and it's great that we're able to sit around a table and ask those questions and talk about it. So tell me everything. How inclusive?
We've got a really good bunch of straight guys. Like the Ally Llamas, they're cool boys. There's quite a few of them now, actually, and I think they just, I don't know. My timeline is that someone worked with someone, or someone was a brother of someone, and then they brought a mate, and then they brought a mate. And I think last year, something quite a few of us here were involved on, we started a touch rugby arm of the club, which is called East End Electric, in partnership with the King's Cross Steelers. I really helped coach that. Matt Wright helped coach that as well. We did get a couple of trans players down. And it was just really, really good. Not just that, we had like straight guys, gay guys, straight women, gay women. It was just this awesome mix of people, about 45 in the end, that got together for 12 weeks to learn how to play touch rugby. And for a lot of them, they even, touch rugby's still, there's some leagues that are men only, there are some mixed leagues, but it was just good to have, I suppose, a very queer space for people to get involved and try something new. And we had boys come back that have injured out of the Steelers or aged out of the Steelers. It was just really good to have an awesome mix of people and bring back some faces we've not seen. Like, one of the guys did pathway with me 10 years ago and hasn't been around the club for 8 years, and it was just great to see him back.
Yeah, we do also have the Pathway to Rugby program that we run every year. We've had trans players do that. People identify as men, people identify as women, all go through that part of the program, and then they will move into their respective teams. So we have a partnership with the East London Vixens as well. So for women's rugby, then obviously we will then get some roadblocks when we do end up getting into the league situations. But we try and make it so there's a place for everyone within the Steelers, whether that is program, pathway, coaching, touch, anyone who wants to be a part of it. We do even allow the straight people in. We will give them that space.
That's the number one question I was being asked to ask you guys, believe it or not.
It is probably one of the most common questions that comes our way, to be fair.
That, and do you look at each other in the shower?
Are we going to have to edit that out or no?
Up to you.
No, I think it's fair. It does get asked a lot.
That actually wasn't asked for me to ask you, but I'm glad you brought it up. So what's the answer?
No comment.
Probably more so the opposition than within the club, I'd say. Somebody said this the other day, and it's exactly the same when I came out in my rugby club at home. The people that you spent all that time with, their mates, they feel like family. Like, you just don't look at them in that way, do you? I think, probably apart from the ones in the club that have had inter-club relations, I think that's probably a lot between a lot of the teams, isn't it? That you probably look at each other and not that bothered because it's your mate and not somebody you're interested in.
I'm sure I've read that there's been a marriage within the club, wasn't there?
There's been a couple over the years, yeah. I think the other thing on a serious note about showering together, and this is just one thing that I've noticed, sometimes when we do play other teams, because rugby showers are just super mixed, right? Like, everyone just gets in one shower, you, the opposition, the other team, the other opposition.
Interested to know where this story's going.
No. There are occasions where we'll go and play Essex Club X, and someone or one or two people will know the Steelers are there, and they'll go into the showers with their boxers on. Number one, it's always the rotten looking ones that do it. And to be fair, and this is another thing about how players aren't the problem in rugby. I have witnessed other players go, if you don't want to take your boxers off, don't get in the shower. Because as if to say, if you're doing it because you're worried they're going to look at you, they've got much nicer things to look at. So sort your life out. So that's nice.
I think we've also played clubs who will get their budgie smuggler merch out when you go and play them and parade around the clubhouse in it for a laugh. And you're like, do you know what, guys, you're good. You can put your clothes back on, but you do you. So it's kind of, it's an interesting one.
Do you feel that you have a responsibility to show yourself? Because you mentioned in the Pride Parade. So do you feel like you have to be on that float representing?
I wish it was a float. It'd been less walking.
Yeah.
But do you feel like you have to take part in that?
No, I've never been, to be honest with you. So, no. It's interesting because I was quite keen. I went to the Pride game on Friday representing Steelers, and we're partnered with Harlequins, so I do a bit of work with Quins as well. So I did feel like I should be there in my role with the club, but as somebody who's part of the community, I don't necessarily feel that I need to go to parades.
Mhm.
And I don't really know why. This doesn't really bother me too much. But then again, in my day job, like if I feel the need to represent the community and explain, to correct people who are inappropriate, then I do feel a responsibility. So I don't know. It's really mixed there.
How do you guys feel about it?
So I think my view is quite similar to Matt's. If you want to go, amazing. I haven't, and I think if I did, it would be for selfish reasons, because I would want to do that for myself and like put myself like out there, and it's like a celebration of myself in that sense. But I don't feel a responsibility to do that for other people. I think it is quite a personal thing at the end of the day.
Yeah,
But I mean, amazing if you do.
because it doesn't define you as an athlete.
No. Sport is a great like leveler in that sense as well. When you're on the pitch, like everyone's a player.
Sure.
Everyone can, hits as hard. Like everyone plays for each other. It doesn't matter.
Chris?
I think, I marched with the Steelers in Pride for the first time in about 5 years this year. And like before, I'd always gone to Pride. I just didn't have it in me to march. But I did it for a few years before then. And I don't necessarily feel responsibility, but I do think it's nice that people know that there's a safe space they can go to. And they may not learn about it unless they go to Pride. I'm not trying to be a martyr. I'm not saying that that's the whole reason I do it. I go to get drunk and flirt with people. But I do think it's nice to see us. And I really flick between, it's like we're athletes before we're gay guys, but ultimately we're all together because we are in the LGBTQIA plus spectrum. And as much as being gay doesn't define us, it is kind of what unites us in my eyes. So I do think it's great to go to like the LGBT sports fair and you see the hockey players and the swimmers and the runners and why can't I think of any other sports? Hockey players, I don't know.
Divers, gymnasts.
Divers, gymnasts, yeah. Matt, classic Matt, remembering everyone in Lycra. But it is good to see like the evolution of gay sport. Like the last union, again, I'm doing the old card, but the standard of the Union Cup in Birmingham across all teams versus what it was in 2014 in Belgium was just like the development of gay rugby over 10 years has just been outstanding.
Do you think you guys kind of have it lucky compared to like football, for example? Because if someone's going to be hiding that who they are, they're not exactly surrounded by like-minded people. So do you think that keeps them closeted even more so?
I mean, there are about 5 gay football teams in London. So they've played sport in the past and wanted to get back in touch, like find it again. Not necessarily, because there are quite a lot and quite a few big clubs for other sports there. But the general perception around the sport, it depends on what level are they looking to play at. It all depends on the individual at that point, because if someone who's just trying to look into getting into a sport, getting into a team sport, there's thousands of inclusive sports all across the world. Whereas, if they're playing professionally or semi-pro, or if they've been playing all the years and used to playing in a certain league, then there will be pressures. But it all depends on the environment they're with. There's so many different clubs. Football is a much larger sport than rugby. Each town will have at least 2 teams, whereas rugby, they'll probably have 1, or, you'll have to travel to the next town for a rugby union team, especially up north. It's a very different sort of thing for them to do. But if they that's just the same as coming out to your mates, but it just means their mates might be slightly more homophobic.
What's one great thing that you each bring to your team? Let's start with Matt R.
That's a good question. I would like to say driving standards, but it's sometimes hit and miss. I'd hope the players understand that I'm trying to equip them with the ability to make decisions for themselves, rather than the biggest thing I've tried to do is get away from being so structured and to coach principles and understanding. So I'm hoping the players will start to feel down the line a bit empowered that they've got the ability as a rugby player to make a decision, impact the outcome of a game. I would hope that that's what they would see anyway.
Wow.
An amazing sense of humor, obviously. I really like being part of a team. I feel like I've done a lot sort of solo, and I think being able to be part of a bigger group and to give your best to doing your best for yourself but for everyone else is a really powerful thing. And so I think I'd like to say that always give 100%.
Chris?
I'll endorse that for Al. He does.
Thanks. And the sense of humor bit as well, man.
Oh yeah, that bit too, obviously, yeah.
I think I give more off the pitch. I love playing. I've enjoyed playing for a long time. I'm definitely at the end of my playing career, but I'm a little bit of a mum or a drunk aunt, probably, where I'm quite good at just checking in with people, maintaining relationships, organising stuff that gets us together. And I was the social sec before Matt was the social sec. So I really love playing, and I'm amazing at lineouts, as everyone will nod to. But like checking in with everybody off the pitch is probably my strength.
Matt, right?
Well, Chris stole my drunk ant line. Probably being a bit of a dependable workhorse, really. Always rocking up when I can to training. I rarely miss something without a true valid reason, not just I can't be bothered. Putting in a shift, making sure everyone on that pitch is comfortable, everyone's aware, trying to be that center of reliability that everyone can at least turn to if either they're going through a tough time or to motivate them into doing a little bit better.
Let's move into some quick fire questions, and then I'm gonna let you guys have your night back. All right. Last song you guys downloaded.
Operation Mincemeat soundtrack.
I don't use a computer. I just have stream it. I don't download songs.
Last song you streamed?
No idea. I think I'm listening to an audiobook at the moment.
I'm listening to a lot of Pink at the moment. Enjoying that.
Either of you guys have a nickname? And can you share it?
None that they've shared to my face.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of.
I think Chris has
Chris,
one. I can tell by that face.
I get called Lady White, but I don't really know where it came from.
I've heard you call yourself Lady White.
Because everyone else does.
You were the first lady at the club during lockdown. You were essentially Matt Webb's wife.
Oh, God.
Who was your celebrity crushes growing up?
Orlando Bloom in Lord of the Rings.
Always Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I'm going to say Ewan McGregor.
Trojan from the original Gladiators.
Showing your age.
Yeah, thank you.
I obviously don't have a life outside of rugby, so mine was Sonny Bill Williams. He played for the All Blacks.
Favorite numbers?
7.
Number?
Yeah.
I hope I heard that correct. Otherwise,
13.
Anybody else have a favorite number?
The one that I call the most at the moment is probably Matt Wright's mobile, so probably that.
What does a person need to be happy?
Don't know. Can you let us know when you find out?
And that's too dangerous a question in this group, to be honest with you.
Alrighty. What's the best age you've been so far?
Oh, sorry, I heard that a bit differently.
I'm good at 33, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to go 35, the year I am now. Like, it's a good place at the moment. Work's good, boyfriend's good.
Oh, you're just making sure you drop that one in.
Oh, shit.
The 35.
Can I backtrack?
Oh, boyfriend, just so that Al and Matt's boyfriends get annoyed and your cats get angry.
On a scale from 1 to 10, how hot do you like your shower?
Like an 8?
8.
Yeah, 8's good.
8 in life, a 5 at the rugby club would do.
Strangest things in your closet?
Is that a question you want to ask, or?
It used to be me, but now
I think I've got some like fancy dress box, which has probably got some quite interesting animal print things. I've got some gold hot pants that are knocking around from my days dancing on bar tops.
I mean, I've got a lot of leopard print, but I don't think that's strange at all.
No, I agree.
Pants with that aren't jocks.
they belong to you.
No, I think Trav
Yeah.
left him.
You've got a boyfriend and you're a bottom. You're sorted.
Who inspires you?
I listen to amazing podcasts with Kelly Holmes, and I'm just in awe of Kelly Holmes. Massive fan. Not just because I listen to like one podcast. I'm not that easy. But yeah, incredible athlete, incredible role model. Like listen to her story. Just like that mentality. What a person.
The boys down the rugby club, like, it's a cliche answer, but it's such a ragtag group of misfits that we don't always all see eye to eye, but they're at the core, most of them are very hardworking, very, very lovely boys.
Nicest compliment you've ever been given.
Worth every penny. As in a rugby context, I might add.
I think Scott Marshall once told me I didn't play shit. That was fun.
It was one time.
High praise.
It was one time. I've not got it out of Rosia yet, so like, any day now.
Matt, you have to turn it up.
I've been injured, Matt.
Yeah, there we go.
What was the last thing you've Googled?
Oh, God.
Everybody goes silent.
Oh, it's Italy accommodation, because I've been said I was going to book that for months, and I'm pretty sure I've got to book it for Al and Matt as well. So yeah, that was on my list tonight.
Probably just a spelling of something.
Look at you all pretending it wasn't porn.
It's probably some sort of Wikipedia deep dive. You know, like you remember like a character in like a soap opera, and you're like, what happened to them? And then you Google them. I can see you all nodding. Yeah.
Did a lot of that yesterday when I was just binge watching telly.
Yeah.
This is a dodgy question, and I probably would skip it, but it's quite interesting how people can answer it. Take it the way you want it. First thing you grab in the morning.
It depends on the mood.
There is one answer that most people give. You'd be surprised.
I mean, it'd probably be the phone to turn off the alarm.
Good point, yeah.
It's usually your mobile. I don't know what you guys were thinking, but yeah.
Depends if I wake up naturally or not.
Favorite social media app?
Instagram.
Yeah.
We're all adults. We don't use TikTok.
Call or text?
Cool.
Text.
Well, it depends on your mood.
One moment in your life that you'd like to relive?
Oh, watching Lord of the Rings again for the first time. Really did it just to watch Chris's face.
Winning sports president after uni.
I've done some quite cool races. Probably the bit where you finish them, not the actual bit during.
It's always a good one. Something you regret. And don't say doing this podcast.
Don't really regret doing anything. Like, obviously I've made some daft choices, but it's kind of just led us to where I am now.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like 100%.
I did regret Friday night, Saturday morning, but
Oh yeah, no, Saturday.
Yeah.
we were very rough. Got a bit excited watching the traitors.
6 bottles of wine, babe. Why?
6 during the traces. It's impressive. You playing a game or just thirsty?
Yeah, drinking wine is the game.
What advice would you give your teenage self?
Don't be a dick.
Oh, you're not as good as art as you think you are. Just get over it. Do physics.
Don't be as mean to your parents. They're trying to help.
It's a good answer, actually. Breakfast, brunch, or dinner?
I love a good lunch. Right in the middle of the day. Like, because if you're not having either meal, you need to eat in the middle.
Got to be dinner.
Big breakfast
Eat in
fan.
bed.
Go to bed thinking about food.
Yeah, I'm with Matt. Breakfast.
Go-to dance song?
Macarena.
Oh yeah, I'm the old one.
You still are the old one.
No, whatever we did in the Heaven show last year. Go on, get a bit of plugging in for the Heaven show. Buy tickets, raise us some money.
Perfect. What's your self-care regime?
Sorry, my mind keeps going to frequent and often.
Exercise.
Most prominent workplace distraction.
Grinder.
There's a really fit guy that sits outside my office.
What advice would you give a new team member?
I think in those, especially like coming to a club like Steelers, like the more you try, the more you get back. I think like the more effort you put in, I think is fair.
Just turn up to Brewers. It's 4 events a year. Please.
What makes a great leader?
Listening more than you talk.
Noted.
And explaining drills right the first time.
So besides rugby, if you could be an athlete in any other sport, which would it be?
Gymnastics.
Yeah, gymnastics.
And say cricket.
Cricket. Blimey.
100%.
Ooh, no.
Diving.
Biggest obstacle you're currently facing?
Learning everybody's name. We get another 60, 70 new people every year.
Work. Just work.
What my involvement is going to be in the rugby club when my ankle finally gives up.
Making sure that I like do the physio and come back properly, and just so I don't break my bones again.
Thanks, guys, for taking the time to do this. And I can't wait to share this podcast.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.